This video is just going to take you through the different settings that apply to your podcast. So to get to your podcast settings, go into podcast on the left there, down to settings, click that, and we'll just go through what appears here. So for the top here we've got a customize section. Now we've got a few more advanced options here that you don't really need. For example, I would always leave this as podcast unless you have a good reason for changing it. This one here, using plugin templates. Now that is just for when, if you want to create your own template. So if you want to change your theme. Now some of the themes will allow this on the podcast host, but most don't, and generally it's just for advanced users that can edit CSS and HTML. So if you want to play with that, by all means go ahead, but most people won't need it. Now one important one down the bottom here is include podcast episodes in homepage blog listing. So your podcast, on your homepage, it'll generally only show posts by default. So any posts that you create using the post option up at the top there will appear on your homepage as standard. But if you click this tick box, that means that all of your podcast episodes will also appear on the homepage. So more often than not, you will want to tick this. Unless you want it to be so that only the front page shows news rather than podcasts, then that's fine. But if you want your podcast to show up on the front page, then click that one. Now it describes where you set the details for your podcast. This is what appears in directories, for example, when you submit them to them. So this works in iTunes, for example. So you want to set your title and your subtitle. The author, you can put in your own name, or you can put in your group's name. Now, category is generally a preset category. So if you click that list, then that takes you to the Apple categories, and you've got to choose one from there, and then that works with iTunes. So make sure you find something that's relevant to your podcast and input that into the category section here. And in subcategory, similarly, you've got the main category, arts, and in subcategory would be design or arts and food. Okay, so just make sure you get the right category and subcategory to put in there. Then you've got description summary. So that can be a more lengthy description, and that can be picked up by a lot of directories as well, so it's worth filling that in. And then you've got a few more. You've got owner. So again, you can either put your own name or your own group, and you've got an email address, so that'd be the email that's picked up by a directory as well as to who administers that podcast. And you've got an explicit tag, so that means if your whole podcast is explicit, then you should tick that box. If it's not, if it's only individual episodes that might be explicit, then you can tick that on the individual episodes. So just a couple more sections. Protect is a useful one. So if you actually have a private podcast, if you want to only offer it to certain people within your own workplace or within your own group, then you can use this section to protect your feed with a username and a password. And then you've got redirect. So that means if you were to move your podcast, you can set up a redirect that goes to your new feed. So if you change your feed from one place to another, you can tick this box and then you can put in the new feed beyond that. And lastly, you've got share, and that is where you actually find your feed addresses. So your complete feed, so every podcast that you post on your whole site is that feed there. Or if you want to show a feed for a particular series, I explained in a previous video that that could be actually a series 1, series 2, or it could be categories, then you use this one here. So I hope that helps understand the podcast settings, and enjoy setting up your podcast.